wünsche ich. Mein Name ist Steffen Volkmer, ich bin vom Panini Verlag, allerdings heute bin ich hier als Moderator und Talkmaster sozusagen angetreten. Und mein Gast und damit auch der Gast derer, die hier angetreten sind bei diesem schweißtreibenden Wetter, um uns zuzuhören und nicht einfach nur zufällig hier sind. Wer ist zufällig hier? Wer möchte uns zuhören? Zufällig. Die zufällig zugelaufenen bitte ich jetzt bitte den Raum zu verlassen. Alle anderen dürfen gerne bleiben. Nein, also mein Gast und euer Gast ist hier Mike Perkins. Hey. Yeah, well, just the usual insultments.
Excellent.
So, ja, und da kommen wir gleich zu dem Punkt. Das Gespräch, das wir hier führen werden, wird primär im Englischen gehalten. Hat mit dieser Sprache, die kaum ein Mensch auf der Welt spricht, irgendjemand hier Probleme? They pretend to understand English, so we can go on in English.
I pretend to understand German.
Well, just by nodding, yeah, yes.
Yeah.
All right. So let's start. Welcome again to Germany. It's not your first time here in this best of all countries in the world. Do you remember how often you have been here to Germany?
This is probably the 4th year.
The 4th?
Yeah, well the first time was just a tour with Panini around, and then there was a convention in Luxembourg at the same time, so we toured in different places. And then 2 years ago was Munich. Last year was Erlangen, and back here to Munich.
All right. So, which of these experiences in Germany you liked most?
I actually like touring because you see a lot of different places.
Yeah.
And Panini are great when you're touring because they actually take you to the places and you can look around for a while. You don't just have to go in and start signing. So you can actually see different places, which is fantastic.
We learned that, you know,
Right.
when I organized the first tour with Will Morrison from The Simpsons, we made like 2 tour stops per day with train in between.
Right.
So when he came home after a week, he was asked, so how's Germany? And I said, oh, well, like train and signing.
Yeah.
So yeah, we now really look that our guests have the opportunities to see a little bit more than only the signing tables.
Right.
So
but you're also generous as well.
Oh well, thank you.
I mean, like the people as well in Germany, but you know, especially with Panini, it gets to the point in every tour where I'm like, please let me buy this meal. No.
Oh, thank you. So enough promotion for me. But thank you. So the thing is, so you have traveled a lot. You have been a couple of times to Germany, but you have seen a lot of the world. You're a traveler,
Right.
and you have also lived in a couple of places. You're original from England.
Yeah.
But now at the moment you're living in the States.
In Florida.
In Florida. So a little bit from the rain to the sun.
Yeah. Well, I was living in England. I met my wife, who was my girlfriend at that time. I met her in England. She was on an exchange course. And so she was going back to Poland, so I was like, I can do my job anywhere. And so I lived in Poland for 3 years. And we got married and moved back to England. And then in 2001, CrossGen Comics started in Florida. And they wanted, it was very unusual because it was like, with comics everybody is usually working in their home and doing it freelance and in the work. But with CrossGen they wanted everybody in the studio.
It's like a real employment.
Yeah, like a 9 to 5 existence. Everybody was there. There were, at the high point of it, there were about 100 people working in the studio. And that's writers, pencilers, inkers, colorists. We edited our own stuff because we were right there. But it was great to have the writer in their office, and they would come out and discuss the ideas with you, and then you would work right next to your, the person who was in your group. So you'd have at the time I was inking.
Yeah.
So I would just turn to Butch, and Butch would pass me the page, to ink after he penciled it, and
I think
just carry on and then pass it to Laura, and it was fantastic.
I think that's funny, is how the most of the comic book fans
Right.
think
Right.
work on a comic book is done, like a big room of creatives sitting
Yeah.
together, having weird ideas, and then
Yeah.
just draw on.
Usually it's just us in our room crying. I have no friends.
So
It's like what's that American film with the puppets? Have you seen it?
The Muppet Show?
No. It was a.
Sesame Street?
Anyway, it was like American Power or something like that. But yeah, there was this North Korean dictator in it, and that's us. You know, he sings his song "So Lonely," and that's us when we're drawing in the studio.
Yeah. So coming right to this point, how is your working day? I know you're set up for yourself like a regular working schedule per day. So how does it start in the morning?
I think you have to set yourself up to have that process. I usually wake up about 6 o'clock.
Well, that's early.
Yeah, I usually get up at 6. I try to exercise a little bit, have some breakfast, and then I'll just start work. So I'm usually starting work about 7 o'clock. Then I'll work until about 11 and have a break for 20 minutes to have something to eat. Then I'll just carry on after that. I might take a break during the day just to refresh myself. The thing is, I mean, living in Florida, it's great because, like I said before, it's like you get to about 1:30, 2 o'clock, and you're kind of faltering, especially when you get up at 6 o'clock. But because I live in Florida, I go for a swim in the pool, just do 50 laps, and then I'm refreshed and back at the drawing board. So I usually try to finish work about 5 o'clock.
Not like a regular working day.
Yeah, it was 7 till 5.
Yeah. Well, that's how much pages are you doing?
I usually do a page per day, which is pencils and inks because I ink myself.
Okay.
And a monthly book in America is 20 pages. So if you break that down to a month, you know, you're doing 20 days of work, you know, plus covers, whatever. So it really breaks down into a month that you can get the stuff out. But then, of course, you try to get ahead, and Marvel will go, "Oh, he's ahead. Put it out twice this month." It's like, oh, back to the beginning.
Yeah. So you try to get ahead, but you don't tell them.
Yeah. I should be like Stephen King and stockpile books.
Yeah. So, well, but you need, if you go on a tour like that or something,
Right.
you have to work in advance.
Oh yeah. I mean, usually you tell them beforehand what you're doing, and they will figure out your schedule and see how everything fits together. But yeah, usually it's like, okay, well, you know, here's you know, the German tour is coming up, so I finished my issue off before I came. Just so it wasn't hanging over my head when I got back to Poland, because I'm going to Poland from here. So everything's done, I haven't got to worry about it.
So usually you do no work while you're traveling. I know a lot of the artists, they go back to the hotel after the signing and I have to finish pages until 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, I think that's usually the case when they forget to do some work beforehand to try to get ahead. You really have to know your schedule, and you have to know where you are and how much you can do in that time. Because otherwise you're just going to end up back in your hotel room drawing. I prefer to just sit down and choose draw.
Are you working on the weekend, or is that completely off for you?
I try not to.
Yeah.
It's difficult. I mean, when you're working at home, it's difficult to switch it off because you'll be going past the studio and you'll be like, that panel needs changing. But it's difficult to actually switch it off. But I do try to take a weekend off. I always try to have one day off So definitely, because I've found that if I don't, I actually do less work.
Yeah.
Because you just slow down.
But I guess the office and the drawing table only call you if you like your job.
Of course.
So I assume you like
Oh
what
yeah,
you're doing.
definitely. I mean, you know, it's just I've dreamed of drawing comics since I was 2 years old. So it's nice to actually do something that you love to do.
So when you dreamt of being a comic book artist when you was a little kid, when did you start your career?
When I was 2 years old.
Oh, right. So
no, my first professional work was in '94, and that was for 2008, which is a British anthology comic. And my second piece of work was a Judge Dredd strip. And I was completely terrified because I was like, you have to work your way up to Judge Dredd. So I can't even look at that job. I don't talk about that one. So there was a bunch of like Future Shocks, which are short stories, and then I did a bunch of work for Caliber, who was a small press publisher in America while I was still doing 2003 work. And at that point I was living in Poland, so I was able to work for Caliber, which didn't pay anything, but it got the work out there.
yeah.
And I think you have to do that when you're an artist. You have to show editors that you can get the book out.
Yeah.
And you're not going to do it by going to DC or Marvel and saying, I can do it. But if you haven't got anything to show,
You have proof. You need proof.
yeah.
Did you learn drawing at the art school, or did you learn it yourself? And
I kind of taught myself, really. I went to art school for a year, did a foundation course. But it was really, it seemed to be, art school seemed to be for people who really didn't know what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
And I knew that I wanted to do comics. And so after spending a year in the pub, I decided to go and do a business course for a year instead. So I knew how to run my career, really.
Yeah.
So I did a business course for a year and then started up as a graphic designer, really. And did that for a few years before the first comic book work came along.
So I think most people do not know that you also did illustrations and
Right.
covers for
Yeah,
books
yeah,
and
yeah, book
stuff.
illustration. Yeah. Mostly for Oxford University Press.
It's educational stuff.
Yeah, but also a lot of the book publishers would also flirt with comics.
Yeah.
Like they don't do comics, but they do
Yeah.
prose with full illustrations every page. So yeah, it was my agent in England who sorted all that stuff out for me. But you know, I enjoyed doing that, and I enjoyed doing the children's comics as well, like Winnie the Willows, and, Meister Mars, and all this kind of stuff, because it was nice to work in a very simpler style with the style sheets and all that kind of stuff. So I enjoyed that. It was a different thing. That was the point where I was doing that work and I'm like, oh, I can still get paid the same amount but do less. This is great.
So since a couple of years you're exclusively working or contracted to Marvel.
Since 2004.
So what is the average of being exclusive for one publisher?
What do you mean the average?
The
advantage.
The advantage. Sorry.
I guess, you know, when you're a freelancer, you're always wondering where the next job is coming from, and it never leaves you, and it's very stressful. But the advantage with being exclusive at Marvel is very much like you're under contract, so they have to give you work. And so therefore it just takes a weight off your mind, really.
Is this like being employed with?
Not really. You don't get the health benefits.
No,
or anything like that. I think you used to at DC, not at Marvel. It's everybody thinks, oh yeah, you'll get health benefits, but no, it really is more of a peace of mind to know that you are under contract with them for 3 years, so you have constant work for those 3 years.
So you also did work for DC Comics?
Only a little bit.
A little bit. So
that was it was kind of tied into Dark Horse, really, because it was a Green Lantern versus Aliens.
Where?
And Superman versus Terminator.
Yeah, the crossovers.
Yeah. And I did some of the DC big books as well, the urban legends.
So if it comes to the superheroes, are you more on the Marvel side
yes.
personally?
I think so. I mean, there's certain DC characters which are great. Like Batman is such a visual character because you can use his shadow and play with it. But I kind of like the more down-to-earth aspects of the Marvel heroes. They always say like the DC heroes are like gods, and the Marvel heroes are more down-to-earth. They're just normal people who happen to have powers.
Yeah.
And I kind of prefer that approach in a way. And I think that Marvel know how to do that, and so they kind of know that I like to use shadow and I like to play with that kind of stuff. And there's not a lot of books within the DC universe that can, unless it's in the Batman line, that can play with that aspects of it.
I promised I wouldn't ask you what is your favorite character. So I coming up with the question, what character you like most to draw?
Wolverine is always very interesting. Just from, you can do so many things with Wolverine. You can crouch him over, you can make him stand up tall. There's a lot of different aspects you can play with his character. I would love to tackle a Doctor Strange thing. I think that would be very interesting. I would love to do a Tomb of Dracula book, because the original Tomb of Dracula, the colon stuff is just brilliant. And I'd like to take a crack at that and make it even more brilliant. I know that's a hard job to do, but
well, if there's one who can do it, then you are.
Yeah, but I mean, there's lots of different characters within the Marvel universe which are just like, I really like to tackle that. I mean, I send a list to Marvel every year saying, okay, this is what I want to do. These are the characters I want to approach.
Is there also a character on the list where you say, and please, not again this one?
Not really. No. I mean, there's always characters that are kind of kooky, and you're like, I don't know about. Like I had to do a bunch of cards for a game.
Yeah.
Like the Disney Marvel thing, which is like War of Heroes cards, these game card things. And they gave me the characters I had to do. And it was like Squirrel Girl and all these. But first of all, it's like, really? Squirrel Girl? But it was so much fun to do. So, I don't have a problem doing that. And it turned out right. It turned out so right that they said, okay, you want to do more? I'm like, yeah, but can I choose who I do now? So they allowed me to choose them.
Yeah. So there was this, you said you like Wolverine, but Wolverine is dead now? That was my question. Will he come back? Can he be died?
I don't know. I have no inner work. I don't know the plans of Marvel, the inner workings. So.
Most of the heroes come back.
Right.
Most of the villains too. So, well, we will see. A lot of movies have turned out through the last years. A couple of them really, really good. Actually, stay with Wolverine. I didn't like the two Wolverine movies too much, but Hugh Jackman was a great character to play him. So, what do you think of this? What was the best movie they have done during the West?
I think The Winter Soldier.
The Winter Soldier?
Yeah, I think Winter Soldier was great. Not just because I worked on the comic, but from the fact that it was a thriller that just happened to have a superhero in it.
Yeah.
And I thought that worked really well. On the other end of the tree, where it's not so kind of serious, I thought Guardians of the Galaxy was fantastic.
I thought
it was a lot of fun.
Absolutely entertaining. Yeah.
Right, and Marvel took a massive gamble in doing that because it was like nobody knew those characters.
Absolutely. When I heard the first announcement of them and I said, really, the Guardians of the Galaxy? Are you kidding me? It's some superhero group of the nexus of everywhere. Nobody really knows them and nobody really wants them. And I was wrong at that point at the moment when I thought it, because the announcement came up, the first trailer came out, and I saw people.
I've got a talking raccoon.
Who likes
tricking people.
Yeah. You know. No, I thought it was absolutely a great movie, and I also liked the two Avengers. I thought Joss Whedon had done an incredibly good job on it. So I'm looking.
I actually preferred the second Avengers to the first one. I mean, I can understand why the first Avengers film was massively successful. Simply because people who are not us, who are not comic savvy, that's the way that they see superheroes.
Yes.
And for me, I came out of the film and I was like, I liked it, but because I read comics, I know that they have a bit more depth to them than was shown in that film. But like I said, I can understand why it was massively successful. But with the second film, they seem to have put that depth back in. And I enjoyed that.
I like both of them, but go with you. I like the second one better than the first. Even I love the first and the second. Yes, really good. But Marvel does a good job on
now they got Spider-Man back. So
well, I'm not sure what this will be, but I was doubting Spider-Man when they made it with the new guy. I think
but it wasn't a Marvel movie.
So now we will see what they're doing. I'm looking forward to Ant-Man. I think that could be cool. I like the trailer. So
Have you seen? I just did a variant cover, which ties into. They've done a whole bunch of variant covers which tie into the release of the Ant-Man film. And I did a Wolverine Days of Future Past cover. But the whole thing with them is it's a normal cover, but the figure that we've drawn is the size of an ant, right in the middle. And it's great. I mean, that's it, that's the cover, just a single figure, ant size. But on the back, it's the full size one. So, I put that up on Facebook and people are like, did you get paid the same amount for that?
Well, you have to tell them it's really, really difficult to draw
use a magnifying glass.
Well, I understand that. Well, anyway, I think I think it will be a great movie, and I fear that on the other hand, what coming up from DC with Superman versus Batman might be awful.
Well, they had a bad moment because 2 days before the Batman Superman trailer came out, the Star Wars trailer came out. So everyone saw the Star Wars trailer and was like, that's brilliant! And then the Batman and Superman trailer came out and it was like, So I think they had a bit of a wrong timing thing there. But the Star Wars trailer was great.
Have you done the Star Wars stuff too?
No, I did an exclusive variant.
A variant cover?
Yeah.
For the number one? Or?
Yeah. So and it was the characters. It was a play on the Giant Size X-Men cover.
Yeah.
So the good guys coming out of the page, the bad guys in the background. But I would love to do a Star Wars book.
Well, probably one day.
Yeah.
So how many variants have been to this number one of the new Star Wars? 100?
Yeah, it was 100 something like that.
So in Germany it will only be 10, and I'm not sure if you're in that.
No, they were only, I think Alex was telling me that there were only a few people they could do the variants with. Because a lot of the variants were done exclusively for comic shops.
Yeah.
And the way they dealt with those kind of variants was the comic shop had to pay Marvel a certain amount, and they had to order a lot of copies. And so it was, that cover was just for that comic shop.
Oh, I know, I understand. Because we were asking if we could do some of the variants with like Racing Pig in it.
Right.
And they said, well, we cannot do that. So we ended up by 10 variants exclusively for our printing. So we have, no, that's the reason why. I didn't follow that too much. I just heard it by one ear. And, okay, I don't understand it anymore. But now I do understand.
Have you read? Has anybody read the first issue, the Star Wars new one? Oh, it's great. It's fantastic.
Don't spoil it, please.
No, seriously. There's 2 moments in it where you're just like, oh, that is brilliant. You know, it's an excellent thing.
Good. So I'm down and have to read it. Thought I probably will come around a little bit. I'm not the biggest Star Wars fan, but
but Jason Aaron's such a good writer. Yeah. And he has a magnificent beard. Never mind, you'll get that.
I'm sorry. I try, but it will never happen. So, speaking about writers, you have had a lot of good writers during your career. So, what is your favorite writer, or who do you like most to work with?
I love working with Mike Carey. Because Mike understands story structure so well, and whatever he writes, I always pick up anyway because it's great. So he's probably one of my favourite writers to work with. I loved working with Ed on Captain America because like Ed and Mike, they're so visual, really. They write in a visual way that you can see it straight away when you read the script. They're probably 2 of my favourites. When I was working on Captain America, at the time, Bill Roseman, who was one of the editors at Marvel, got in touch with me and he wanted me to do the Annihilation Conquest one-shot thing, and Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning were writing that. And I said to Bill, I've got so much on, I can't fit in it. I said, but send the script to me because I really want to read it. And so he sent it to me, and after reading it, I was like, oh, I've really got to draw this. It was such a good script. So Dan and Andy, they're always a pleasure, really. There's so many, but probably Mike Carey is probably my favourite collaborator.
As far as I know, you mentioned that you're working on some new project with him.
Yes, but it hasn't been announced yet.
It hasn't been announced yet.
Yes.
Can we have a hint?
It's a creator-owned.
It's creator-owned,
yeah. And it's horror-based. Kind of a spooky ghost kind of horror thing.
Well, it will be.
It's a 4-issue.
4 issues. Yeah. So I'm waiting for that. When will it come out?
We're aiming for a Halloween launch. So October, end of October. But I've just got to start it yet.
Well, go home. So, any other thing we could announce now, or we are not allowed to announce, but can give hints to?
You can turn the camera off. And
right.
No pictures.
No, I mean I'm just wrapping up my run on Deathlock now. I've done 10 issues of that, the last one, just before I came. And Deathlock was one of those characters which I'd always loved since I was a kid. Just the visual aspect of it. And so the chance to launch a new Deathlock book was brilliant. It was such a good experience. So I've just wrapped that up, and just before I left, they told me what I'm working on next. They haven't announced it, but Jerry Conway is writing it. He used to write numerous books in the 70s and 80s. So it'll be interesting to work with him, definitely. Definitely looking forward to it. And he plays to my strengths. It's very, very shadowy, very dark. But yeah, sounds intriguing.
Oh, well, I'm looking forward to whatever it will be.
I think they're going to announce it just before San Diego.
Yeah.
At San Diego.
Well said.
So they would debag me if I said anything.
No, silence about that. So the comic festival here now has a focus on the comic artists and creatives from England or from British Ireland. There are a lot of them, and there is also a comic history, a big comic history there. What is is there a difference between comic books made in England and made in the States?
I think it's kind of shrinking, that difference is.
Yeah.
The biggest difference between that was always in England, in Britain, we did everything. We were pencil, ink, colour, letter, whatever, we did everything. In America, it was set up as a production line. So you'd have someone doing the penciling, someone doing the inking, someone doing the colouring. And that was the way it was done, so you could get it out on a monthly schedule. But in England, it was more of a case of the artist would do everything. And I think there's so many artists now within the American industry that prefer to do everything anyway, at least pencil and ink. And so, I mean, I always insist on inking myself when I'm working, because that's just what I prefer. I mean, that's the kind of art style I grew up with from reading 2008. And you know, my heroes were Steve Dillon and Brian Bolland and Dave Gibbons and all these guys, Cam Kennedy. You know, it was all those guys from 2008, and it was just like, that was the stuff I grew up on.
I know a lot of friends of mine from the comic book scene, also artists, they say the real, the most important man on a comic book is the inker.
Well, he's the one that everybody sees at the end.
Yeah,
really.
Because most people are going for the penciler and everything, but they say, well, yeah, the penciler is good. You need a good penciler, but in the end, if the inker is not good, it will not show what the penciler did, and it will not be a good thing. Like a good inker can ruin a good pencil and make a bad pencil looking good.
Right, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I've had people inking my work in the past, and it's never. I mean, it doesn't matter how great the inkers are, and I've had some really good inkers. But the fact is that when I see the page in front of me, it's not my artwork anymore. You know, it's not how I would envision the finished piece. So that's why I always prefer to ink myself. But saying that, I still like to ink other people as well. So
and make them look like me.
Yeah. Well, a lot of artists do that, but I always prefer to look at perhaps work that they have inked themselves, so that I can see how they would prefer to be inked. Like on Captain America 10, Lee Weeks penciled it, and he penciled it very, very loosely. I guess he was in a rush, and so I just looked at the project that he did with Dave Gibbons, and see how he inked himself on that, and just followed that. So I always try to make my inks complement pencil rather than overpower them. You know, I don't want to be like a Bill Sienkiewicz or a Kevin Nolan who when they ink it always looks like them, no matter who's penciled it. Which is great if that's the approach you want, and you know, it'd be nice to be inked by them simply because when the job's finished, you would have a piece of Bill Sienkiewicz artwork or Kevin Nolan artwork. But yeah, so apart from that, I always prefer to ink myself.
Have the artists and the writers, the pencilers, the inkers and colors from over the channel, do they have like close contact over there?
You mean from England?
Yeah.
Yeah, they do. It's not, you know, you don't see everybody all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was living over there, there was always a group of us getting together once a month in Birmingham.
Is there something like a Birmingham group of?
Yeah, you know, there's a whole, you know, there's Mark Farmer, Phil Wheatley, Steve Pugh, Charlie Adlard, John McRae, James Hodgkins. We're all in that area, so we would always get together, perhaps once a month, and just, you know, bitch and moan about people who weren't there. As is the want of.
And once a month you visit Alan Moore just
for
ringing the doorbell and running away.
Yeah, he was somewhere else, probably on another plane of existence.
Have you ever met him?
No, I haven't. No. Well, I met him when I was 14, something like that.
Around, so when he was 100?
Yeah. And you know, I was 14. He was this big, hairy guy. You know.
Guess this was a quite impressive thing.
Right.
Hello.
Right. But at that point, he'd done some Swamp Thing stuff.
Yeah.
But most of his stuff was 2000 AD.
Well, just
he wasn't Alan Moore at that point.
Yeah, right. Well, like 2 years ago, I met Jason Burrows. You know, this horror.
Yeah, the Necronomicon, whatever it was there.
And he told me he just visited Alan Moore at home, and then he described this magic house here.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, this might be spooky. But.
Yeah, the one time when Joe Pruitt, who was one of the main guys at Caliber, he was over in England, and he wanted me to go with him and Brian Bolland to Alan Moore's house.
Yeah.
But I had to be somewhere else. And Joe told me afterwards that he and Brian turned up at the house, and Alan opened the door and he's like, "Hey, do you want some mushrooms?" So that was a great little moment, that I missed out on.
Wonderful, yeah.
And it was an English house, so they were probably growing on the wall.
Yeah. Here, try this one and this one. It's
probably got his own crop.
It's homegrown. Yeah, you can't eat it, but you can smoke it. Well, wonderful. All right. This was a good talk so far, and we got a little bit time left. So, but maybe there are some questions in the audience we can answer. So, I give it at the moment. If no question is, I would just go on chatting. But we have the chance.
I would be interested more about the Croatian days. That's where I know you from originally, from Roos,
right?
And I don't know that much other than you were sitting there together in a room.
Right.
What you said before. How like did you did Roos most of the time?
Yeah. I did like 26 issues of Roos.
Yeah.
No, it was great. It was one of those moments where for the first 2 years you could sit in the quad area, because all the quads were set out, and there were 2 teams per area. So there was our quad was Roos, the Roos team and the Crux team. So we were in that one area, and we would the walls were about that high in the area, with all the drawing boards set up, and you could recognise people by their laughter. That was how good it was. You know, everybody would be cracking jokes all the time. But once it started to the money problem started to go a bit south, that kind of atmosphere disappeared really. But for a while it was fantastic, and I think it could have succeeded if it wasn't for some boneheaded business decisions that were made.
I think you really could tell from the work.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I read everything, and it really tied together.
Right. I mean, even the Valiant guys now. I don't know if you get the Valiant titles over here.
Not really. We can get it, but it's not big.
But even the Valiant guys now, they're like, CrossGen was their viewpoint of how to run a company. But the thing was, I mean, even Mark Alessi was the main guy. Even he said that he was great at setting up businesses, but not so great at running them. But he still tried to run it. So that's one of the reasons it just went down. I mean, the whole thing was kind of strange for me because I was there on a work visa in the States, and I was basically there because of that work visa. So if I left CrossGen, then I would have had to have left the country. But as soon as I was pretty much the last person out of CrossGen because of that reason. And once I got into my car, the phone rang and it was Marvel saying, "Don't worry, we'll take care of your visa." And I'm just kind of looking around. How do they know?
You immediately signed on to Marvel then?
Yeah. They were like, "Well, we would insist that you would sign an exclusive with us," and I'm like, "Oh, go on then."
Sure.
So we immediately signed on with Marvel after that. Yeah, it was a good time, and it's something I would, definitely do again if I was in that situation.
So would going back to England be an option for you?
Going back to England?
Yeah.
If I had a ton of money, I think.
So tomorrow.
Nah, the English house prices are just insane.
Yeah.
And the kind of area that I would want to live in, which would specifically be kind of Stratford-upon-Avon, the houses there are just like crazy. So, I mean, I'm pretty much settled in. Really, the whole thing with CrossGen was like, we'll go over there for 3 years and make some contacts, and then come back to England, And that was in 2001. So, it's obviously lasted a bit longer than 3 years. But my wife she got work there, which was exactly what her degree was about. Our daughter was born there, so we have a little American. So it kind of settles you down to a place. Plus the fact that it's nice with my job that I can, go away for a few months, basically. Because during the summer when we're over in Europe, we usually have our base at my wife's parents' place in Poland, and I've got a studio set up there. So I just get back to work as soon as we land. So that's always nice that we're able to do that.
So obviously
we feed our European hunger during those months when it's just awful to live in Florida.
whatever that means. Well, awful living in Florida. I think every European guy here around the Florida. Yeah, it's my dream.
Not in the summer.
Not in the summer. Well, in the summer it's even here too much for me. So, so obviously for you, being a comic book artist, it's it's possible for you to make a good living out of it. Is it in general difficult to make a living out of being a comic book artist?
I don't think so. I mean, it's difficult to start. It's very difficult to start getting work. But as long as you've got your head on correctly, and you treat it like a business, I don't see any problem. I mean, the one thing is, you know, some people just don't have the attitude to either sit down and do the work, or to interact with the editors in the correct manner, let's say. And so those, you know, they'll kind of be weeded out. You know, so it can be difficult if. The thing is, with most people who do comics, it's a dream job.
Yeah.
You know, so once you're in there, it's like you really want to stay there and continue on. So you want to do as much as you can to be in a position where, not that you become irreplaceable, because nobody's irreplaceable, but just the fact that people still want to see your work.
Yeah. Is it if your name appears in the credit list of a movie, it gives that some extra money? Are you an artist?
No, not unless you've created an actual character. I don't think. I mean, with the creator-owned stuff, it's different because that's your project.
Yeah.
The stuff for Marvel, I guess you can probably see a little bit of money. I don't know.
Or if you're hired for the movie for some character designs, so you're working.
Probably, yeah.
Is it something you would like to do?
I just don't have the time. You know, I get the monthly books out, and I'm my own worst enemy sometimes because I don't like fill-in books. Even as a fan reading comics, I don't like a fill-in book where another team comes in for a month. And so I always want to, you know, do the entire run myself. And so, but that basically means you cannot have a break.
Yeah.
And doing other stuff like that, which would take you away for months at a time, it's lost time, really, for me.
All right, some more questions here from the audience.
Anybody else? Yes.
Well, when you say that you don't want to do it, making character design for a film, well, then is it possible to do it anyhow? So that Marvel movie says, we would like to have you do character designs, and
Right.
Marvel Comics says, well, okay, you can go for 4 months and then come back.
Yeah. They could probably do that. I mean, I know that Adi Granov has done a lot of that kind of stuff for the Iron Man films. And so I'm sure that option could be there. But I guess for people like Adi, he's not a monthly guy anyway. So Marvel are probably more willing to let him do that kind of stuff. Whereas with me, I'm just like, I get the books out, you know, so they want to keep those kind of people around in order to do that. But I mean, there's no real reason why I couldn't do it. It's just more of a choice that, you know, I'd like to do that. Plus a lot of the Hollywood stuff is, you know, they want you to go out there and they want you to work within a team. And it's difficult when you've got a young daughter and, you know, you want to be at home, you know. So it's a difficult thing, but I think I would like to do it at some point, but I'm fine doing what I do. Does that answer your question?
It does,
Yeah.
I got one more question.
Yeah.
You said you want to do your inking yourself.
Yeah.
What about the coloring? Because the coloring changes everything completely.
It does. If I could have my own say, I would want my comics printed in black and white. Because for me, I do a lot of grey tones as well within the artwork. I mean, if you come by during the weekend, I've got a lot of the originals there, and you can flick through them, and you'll be able to see how much of the grey tones I put in there. So, you know, I would prefer it all to be black and white. I really don't. I haven't had the chance to teach myself computer coloring. It's the blunt answer.
Well,
but then again, I mean, you know, it comes down. I guess it comes down to an economic situation as well, because you can earn more money just penciling and inking and leaving the colour to someone else, really. And there's so many great colourists out there that usually you find a colourist that you love working with, and try to mould them to your sensibility. Anybody else?
Which is probably also good fun, working
It
together
is.
with the colorists.
It is. And sometimes they give you something that you didn't expect, but it's actually better than what you thought yourself. I mean, the thing is with me, because I grew up on black and white comics, when I'm drawing a comic, I'm always seeing it anyway in blues and browns. You know, it's just that's the way I see. I mean, if you've ever seen The Ghost Writer, the film with Ewan McGregor and Pierce Brosnan, that whole film is how I would colour a comic. You know, it's all blues, greys, and browns. You know, and I guess for most people it would be like, but you know, so for a colorist to actually, you send a page in and it's kind of, it becomes like the building becomes a deep purple and the sky is like a yellow because there's a storm going on, and you're like, that is brilliant. Why didn't I see the page like that? You know. But I'd still prefer it in black and white.
Okay, any more questions?
So
And one more.
you've been for quite a long time at Marvel,
Mhm.
and I think you didn't touch upon the subject. What are the dream projects that are still left at Marvel?
Yeah, I mean, there's like I said, Tomb and Dracula is a dream project. Going back to Wolverine, I think I would love to do a Wolverine tale with Ed Brubaker, but kind of do it in that Winter Soldier espionage kind of milieu, you know, just and play with that, you know, because you don't really see that espionage side of Wolverine, which I think could be really intriguing. Black Widow is always a favourite character of mine. There's most of the Marvel characters are just brilliant. I mean, even stuff like Nova and things like that, which usually a kind of change of pace, but that would be kind of interesting to do. I mean, I grew up loving the X-books, and it was great to work on Astonishing X-Men, but to work on one of the other X-Men books would be very interesting. And Daredevil is a favourite as well. I think I could do a good job on Daredevil.
Have you seen the TV series?
No.
Yeah, you should. It's brilliant.
Pretty good,
Yeah.
Well, so I guess I have a last question
Yes.
just regarding
Dinner?
Yeah, no. One project we only had in a short sentence of you. The Doctor from Stephen King.
Oh, the Stand.
Yeah, the Stand from Stephen King. And so the question, it's not about the project, it's more about Stephen King. Have you ever met him? Or
I haven't met him, no, but he did send me emails when we were working on the adaptation.
So
he would, well, when I did the initial character designs, he would send me emails saying, "Oh, this is exactly how I saw the character when I came up with it for the novel." But every now and again, I would get this email from him going, "The new issue came out. I'm like a kid in a candy shop." It was just a nice experience working with him, and and every now and again, I'll send him a little email going, "Remember, I want to do Salem's Lot." I think I'd like to tackle that at some point. That's a dream project for me, especially if I could work with Roberto Aguirre-Sacasa again, because we've paced it out. We could do it in 15 issues. You know, I think Salem's Lot would be a great book to adapt. But I mean, the stand was difficult in a way because, well, it's in the title. There's a lot of people standing around, talking.
It's actually not much movement in it. Yeah, I know. And a lot of people just black,
right.
Completely like only the silhouettes.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Right. So it was. So the stand is very much. The thing is, when you've got the novel in front of you, you know that it's going to go somewhere. So you get to these points where they're building up civilization again, and they're trying to go through that process of building up civilization. And it's very much like, 6 issues of people talking. But you know that at the end it's going to heat up again. If that novel wasn't there, you'd be like, oh, man, give me something else to do. And I actually got to that point where it was like, oh man, just give me something like some big muscular guy and stuff. And so they gave me a Thor project to do. Just a one shot. But and that's another character I'd love to tackle again at some point. Thor story. The good thing with the Thor story I did, it was like an evergreen story, and it was set in the Viking Age, so we could just utilize any aspect of Thor at that point. And that was one of those things where the story was in my head, and I went to Mike Carey and said, okay, this gave him a list of things I wanted to draw, and he crammed them together into a story. So that's why he's a great collaborator to work with.
All right, it's 6 o'clock, so we talked 1 hour to death.
Yes. And I only drink that much beer, so it's going to be
You see, that's a good thing if you are the host of some talking, because I'm one ahead. So I haven't too much to talk, because you did a great job on that. So thank you very much.
Thank you,
Mike Perkins, and thank you very much to the audience.
Yes, thank you.
And tell all the others what they have missed. Very good.